and thanks for joining us today. This is session 11 of ServiceNow's demo series for the US Air Force. Over the last couple months, we've covered a host of ServiceNow topics and demonstrations, ranging from the service desk to asset management to operations management, as well as HR and customer service management. We plan on continuing these webinars all through the month of August. Our focus today is ServiceNow's predictive intelligence and machine learning. So in this session, we plan on going over how we are able to leverage ServiceNow's machine learning to increase efficiencies by automatically detecting, categorizing, and routing work. We'll also go over how ServiceNow's natural language understanding, NLU, is able to provide a better user experience to identify similarities between incidents, requests, and cases. By way of introduction, my name is Gain Nazareth. I'm a solutions architect with ServiceNow, and I've supported the DoD team for about 5 years. I do have a co-presenter today. He's actually the main event, a gentleman by the name of Dan Grady. Dan has been with ServiceNow for over 4 years and supports both our commercial and federal customers. He specializes in AI, artificial intelligence, and analytics as well. All right, with that said, I have an important housekeeping item I need to go over before we get started. Since this is a webinar, everyone is automatically set to mute mode, which means we won't be able to hear you even if your microphone is on, right? So if one of your kids, barges into your home office or one kid is beating up another kid, these are daily occurrences in the Nazareth household. If that happens to you, rest be assured, nobody's gonna know about it. Now, on a serious note, if you have a question, please enter it into the Q&A section of the webinar. Your questions are not visible to anyone but the panelists, which is comprised of the ServiceNow team. So we'll do our best to answer these questions on the chat. We may also address some of these questions verbally for the larger audience. Okay, before I hand it over to Dan, I wanted to spend about 3 minutes going over the ServiceNow platform. This is the foundation on which all our applications are built upon, including intelligence and analytics, which you'll be seeing today. All right. Okay, so what is ServiceNow? Simply put, ServiceNow is a workflow automation platform. That's where we start, and frankly, that's where we end. As a workflow automation platform, we provide non-technical people the tools needed to build applications quickly without having to write code. These tools include, your workflow designer, your forms builder, your configuration management database, analytics engine that you'll be seeing today, and several other foundational building blocks. With that said, we've taken a step further and built over 50 prepackaged applications on our platform and grouped them into 3 buckets: IT, employee, and customer. Now, from an IT perspective, you think about your service desk applications, maybe visibility and compliance for your, management for your assets, enterprise portfolio and project management, as well as audit and policy management. Now, included in IT is also, applications for your network operations and your security operations teams to be more proactive as opposed to being reactive. So that's on the IT workflow side. Moving on to the employee workflows, here's where you have your airman or your civilian servicing applications. So you think about onboarding or offboarding or maybe personnel change of station, essentially any HR workflow, as well as the airman service desk. So, that service desk that handles, your non-IT, more of your personnel functions like your pay cases or vacation cases or any HR related cases, that's again included in the employee workflows. And then lastly, we've got a customer workflow. So these handle all the applications that are more along the lines of customer interactions. You think about CRM, your CRM capabilities like, your account and contact data models, as well as any non-IT case management. Also, part of the customer workflows is the field service management application, which is used to manage and track work orders and tasks across the field. Now, if you have a use case that does not fall under one of these 50 applications or these 3 buckets, we have what we call our app engine, right? We could leverage this, and this is essentially an extension to the workflow automation platform. All right, so if you now bring all this together, we can deliver an enterprise platform that can enhance the airman experience, improve processes, increase visibility, and decrease costs. All these applications can directly be accessed through a browser or a mobile device or one of your collaboration systems you see on the screen. And now lastly, oftentimes we are required to integrate with DoD mandated systems. So you think about those systems of record, like ACAS or DEAMS, MyPurse, HBSS, EMAS, and the list goes on, right? In order to do so, we can leverage ServiceNow's APIs that are DoD approved and industry leading, as well as some of the pre-built connectors to all these tools and some of the software you see down here, right? And just to give you guys an example of how we bring all this together, let's take employee onboarding. I'm sure that's something that all of us can relate to, right? All of us have either been onboarded into a service or a company or whatever it may be. What we could do is you think about that process. It has several touch points. If you follow my mouse, you probably have a human capital system, right? A human HR system, maybe a records management system to manage all your personnel records. Facilities system that manages all your cube and office assignments. Maybe an IT system for asset and application access. ERP systems, obviously, for payrolls, right? So you've got all these different systems out there. What ServiceNow is able to do is integrate all these systems together and provide a layer of engagement for practitioners, admin, and employees. As a result, the complexities from the underlying workflows are hidden from the end users. That's what makes us, in many ways, a platform of platform for digital workflows. All right. Okay, moving on. I just kind of backdated that slide. What we're going to focus on today is machine learning, AI, artificial intelligence, and analytics. And this is a core platform feature. So what I mean by that is all your IT workflows or all your employee workflows or all your customer workflows, or even some of the custom applications you've built using the ServiceNow platform can all leverage these capabilities. All right. So again, it's foundational to the ServiceNow platform. All right. With that said, I was going to hand it over to Dan. While we're doing that, Dan, you could go ahead and share your screen. I'm wondering, are there any questions that we can address?
There are currently no questions, Gain, but just for notification for attendees, most folks can hear now. So just so you know that we solved that problem.
Oh, was there an issue with the audio?
Yeah, they had to activate their audio.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Good to go?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's do it. All right, so as Gain mentioned, my name is Dan Grady. I'm part of what we call the NLU Intelligence team here at ServiceNow. So there's a group of us that are focused on making sure that our customers understand all the different value-add analytics capabilities that exist on the ServiceNow platform. So that box that Gain just put up, that's what we're going to be talking about here today. So for the next 30 minutes or so, what we'll focus on is just a real quick high level, the why and what of NLU Intelligence. And then we'll dive into predictive intelligence, which is the brand name we give our in-platform machine learning capabilities. We'll look at some of the core frameworks that exist there from a machine learning perspective. And then we'll look at a brief demonstration of how different folks would interact with those frameworks. And then we'll transition over to the virtual agent, which is our in-platform AI conversational interface that's driven by our natural language understanding capabilities. We'll look at some of the advantages you get by using an in-platform conversational interface. And then we'll transition into a two-part demonstration. The first piece will be getting a sense of how the virtual agent would interact with an end user, somebody who's trying to get help. And then what I'm finding more and more is customers are getting a significant amount of value out of the low code, no code authoring environment that we offer to allow you to stand up your own customized virtual agent conversations to support your unique business needs. So I want to make sure that you get a real quick introduction into how easy it is to get going with the virtual agent. Good. And as we go along, if you have any questions, get them out there in that the question and answer section, and we'll make sure that we get them answered. I do have to put this slide up here. This is the slide that says anything I say and do here today cannot be held against me in the court of law. It is also the slide that says as part of this conversation, if we happen to make any forward-looking statements about things that are potentially coming with the ServiceNow platform, you should take those as forward-looking statements and make no decisions based on them because they are subject to change. I'm sure you read all the fine print. In general, every one of our customers, everyone that we talk to is focused on these three things in some way, shape, or form. The first is increasing the velocity in which things get done inside of the organization. The second is getting our arms around all of this rich data that's being generated by the different applications in the ServiceNow platform on a daily basis, and then using that data to drive more intelligence back into the processes and services that we're delivering to our stakeholders to create the last one, which is those better experiences, those smarter experiences to unlock more productivity for the organization. What we've done from a ServiceNow perspective is we've aligned a set of capabilities on the platform underneath this Now Intelligence moniker to help aid in those missions. The first one is the virtual agent. That's our always-on 24/7 available in-platform conversational interface. The second is the predictive intelligence piece. Like I said, the machine learning portion of the platform that allows us to do things like predict the category and the assignment group of a ticket just based on the short description, or surface to agents that are working tickets, similar open or resolved tickets. Or one of the examples that we'll see here today, and this is a newer one, but the ability to let our customers know that you have a gap in your knowledge base. We have a whole set of tickets over here that don't look like they have knowledge articles that could solve them. You might want to fill that gap to drive more self-service scenario, a better self-service scenario moving forward. And then the last pillar here is the performance analytics piece. This is essentially the portion of the platform that tells you that everything else that you're doing from a ServiceNow perspective, it tells you whether it's working or it's not. It's the piece that allows us to set up organizational KPIs and metrics, cascade them throughout the organization to make sure that everyone stays aligned to what we're trying to do, and then gives you visibility into the momentum that we have towards those different goals for different areas of the organization. And when we don't have the momentum that we want, we don't see the trends moving in the right direction, it helps you understand which levers you could be pulling inside of the organization to help us reach those goals more effectively. So mostly today, we're going to focus in on the virtual agent and the predictive intelligence, but we've bundled these things together. You're going to see them all start complementing one another to help create those optimal experiences and drive smarts into all the different aspects of the business. So let's talk about predictive intelligence. What we've been doing over the last number of years at ServiceNow is we've been building out a layer of that platform that Gain just introduced to some of you, and some of you might be more familiar with. We've been building out an intelligent layer of that platform that all of those other applications that you would be running on the ServiceNow platform can tap into to drive smarter experiences as part of their offerings. I'm going to cross those different offerings. There's a number of pre-built machine learning solutions that we offer our customers. So there's a handful of them inside of the ITSM offering, CSM, and HR. These are pre-built solutions that you can just turn on and collect and use some of your data to drive these solutions for your specific use cases on the platform. But the platform itself, that AI layer that all those pre-built solutions are built on, contains a number of different machine learning frameworks that you have the ability to use to create your own use cases and your own solutions with. So I'm just going to walk you through each of these individual frameworks, and then we'll look at them in a little bit more detail. The first framework is the natural language understanding framework. This is the piece that really drives the virtual agent. It's the machine learning framework on the platform that allows us to take the unstructured way in which people speak and type and put some structure around it so the virtual agent can understand the action or the intent that somebody has when they come to the virtual agent looking for help. And you'll see this in action in a little bit. The second framework is the classification framework. This is a supervised machine learning framework that essentially allows us to predict the output of something based on a certain input. So if you think about any choice or reference field on a form, we can use a machine learning model to predict the values that should be in there based on another field that somebody had entered. Out of the box, the solutions that we provide for our customers in this area that leverage the classification framework are things like, hey, short description. With this short description, I want to predict the category, the assignment group of that ticket. But you can use that to predict other aspects in other fields, like I said. The similarity framework, this acts like a recommendation engine. What this allows us to do is compare different aspects or textual aspects of different records on the platform and group them together. So out of the box, we provide solutions that help agents find similar open or resolved tickets based on the short description of the one that they're working right now, or surface more relevant knowledge articles for folks based on the short description or the description of the ticket that they're working. The clustering framework, what this allows us to do, this is an unsupervised machine learning framework on the platform. What this allows you to do is point machine learning at a set of data on the platform, let's say all the incidents that you have open right now, and it will start clustering those incidents together based on similarities inside of the data itself. What many of our customers are using this for today is to help them identify automation opportunities. So you've got a whole bunch of tickets out there right now. We're going to start clustering those things together. And when you start analyzing those different clusters, you'll see, oh my gosh, we have a ton of account management tickets out here right now. That's something that we can use the ServiceNow platform to automate. And once we start automating those things, that will free up those tickets and drive more productivity inside of the organization. And then this last framework, this regression one, this is something that's going to be new in the Paris release, so the release that's coming out in September. What this is going to allow us to do is start predicting more numerical values. So service owners can start estimating the number of hours it'll take for somebody to resolve an incident or a ticket. That's something that's going to be new in the Paris release. So these are these core frameworks that are on the platform today. We continue to add to this library of frameworks. And like I said, there's some pre-built solutions to help you get started. And then you have the ability to start working with these frameworks on your own if there's a solution that you want to build above and beyond what we offer. Now, diving deeper into each one of these frameworks, the classification framework, where you're going to see this primarily surfaced is on a form that somebody's going to be working. So if you look at this incident form that I have on the screen here, you'll start seeing that's predicting the category in the assignment group. You'll also see this classification framework surfaced via the virtual agent or any place in which we're entering a description of some sort, and we want to predict values based on that inputted field. Similarity framework, you're going to see this inside of the agent workspace primarily, or on a form in which an agent's working. And what they'll have the ability to do is there's an additional search context available to them inside of the agent assist panel where they'll be able to say, hey, I want to find my similar open or resolved tickets based on the one that I'm looking at. Like I said, it's very rare that something's happening for the first time inside of an organization. So making this information available to folks around similar solutions to the thing that they're working on right now really saves a lot of time and drives more productivity. We also use the Similarity Framework as part of this Agent Assist panel to recommend to agents that potentially they should be proposing a major incident. So if machine learning starts seeing a whole bunch of similar incidents coming in over a certain time period, it'll pop up and say, hey, guess what? You should propose a major incident here. And if you happen to be using our major incident workbench, you have an ability right from the major incident workbench to use the Similarity Framework to reach out and find incidents that should be aligned to the major incident that you're currently working right now. From a clustering standpoint, we talked about this a little bit already, and I'm going to show you this in a demonstration form. But there is a very specific use case that the clustering framework drives. Actually, it's a combination of similarity and clustering together that when I introduce it to customers, they're saying, oh my gosh, this would save us a tremendous amount of time and have a ton of value. And that's that knowledge demand insights use case, where it's looking at incidents that you have out there. It's identifying that we don't have any knowledge articles based on the Similarity Framework that align to those incidents. It's clustering them together and producing this visualization, but you can use the clustering framework in any way, shape, or form to help you identify automation opportunities. The last framework is the Natural Language Understanding Framework. You're going to see this in action in a second, but there's four very specific ways in which natural language understanding impacts the virtual agent that I want to call out ahead of time here. NLU, or Natural Language Understanding, impacts the virtual agent by one, helping us discover the topic or the conversation that somebody wants to launch into via the virtual agent. So based on the text that they type in, I want to jump into a very specific conversation to help solve that problem that they've mentioned. There's this concept of slot filling, in which machine learning helps us identify contextual items inside of what somebody typed into the virtual agent and allows us to fill in certain aspects of that conversation ahead of time. So if you notice the example that I have on the screen here, it says update my email address in my profile. What the virtual agent recognizes is, hey, this person wants to update their profile. But it's also able to pull out, using natural language understanding, that the person wants to update their email address, right? So it just fills in that portion of the conversation and jumps them right to that aspect instead of asking them additional questions. This concept of conversation switching, what natural language understanding allows us to do is start one conversation, but then change our minds and quickly jump over to another conversation without having completed the first one. And then there's a concept of small talk, which allows us to start one conversation with the virtual agent. And then, you know what, ask an additional question in the middle of that and have it bring me back to the original conversation once I get the answer. All of these things are made possible by the natural language understanding framework that we have underneath driving the virtual agent. Like I said, you'll see that in the virtual agent demonstration. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to jump over quickly here to show you a couple of those examples of the machine learning frameworks in action. And we'll start with the classification, the similarity framework, I guess. So I'm just going to come over here to my agent workspace, and I'm going to create a new incident. And I'm going to come in here and I got to add the caller. That's a required field. Enable tutor. And I'm simply going to come in here and I'm going to type can't log into Workday Analytics. And just based on typing that in, you'll notice over here on the right-hand side, when I come over to my agent assist piece, it's already started to surface some information for me that might be helpful. But I do have this option to come over here and start looking at similar open or resolved incidents or similar knowledge articles. And right from here, I can select this option, and I've got not the most robust demonstration data inside of this instance, but what this is going to go out and it's going to get me a list of all the similar incidents that look like the one that I'm working on right now to help me find a resolution to that might be able to be used, streamlining the path to resolve this. Now watch what happens when I click this save button and submit this incident. I'm going to get a notification up here that it's predicted the category of software for this incident, and it's predicted HR system support as the assignment group for this ticket and filled in those values for me. Now that's going to seem like a little thing, but actually it goes a long way in terms of streamlining things and automating the triaging process, as well as getting us more accurate information and reducing reassignment counts inside of the organization. We had one customer who recently presented at our knowledge conference, Western Governors University. They've rolled out the classification framework as part of their process to fill in the category and the subcategory. That's where they started. And in the first month of rolling it out, what they saw is they had 86% accuracy in terms of the predictions that were being made. And they've estimated that it saved them over 100 hours in triaging time just by putting this little machine learning based automation in to predict the category and the subcategory. Like I said, by default, we predict category and assignment group, but you have the ability to configure it to predict other values above and beyond the ones that we provide you out of the box. I'm going to swap over here. I want to show you that demand insights piece real quick. As I mentioned earlier, what this is going to be doing, it uses Similarity to find a bunch of incidents that don't have knowledge articles as part of their solution. It doesn't look like we have knowledge articles in the knowledge base for them. And then it uses clustering to further refine those results and bundle them together for me. And it produces this visualization, which is a Pareto chart of those clustered incidents. So I've got my top clusters here. And what the knowledge manager or service owner could do is drill into any one of those clusters, and it's going to bring them to the incidents that are clustered together or make up that cluster. Now, I've got 212 incidents that fell into that cluster. What I can do real quick is I can click this button that says generate representative sample, and it's going to shrink those 212 down to the 20 that are closest to the center of that cluster. And then I can start looking at these and say, hey, I want to take this and I want to generate a knowledge feedback task for that. So I can tell somebody, take a look at these incidents and see if a knowledge article will help. And that kicks off the knowledge article process inside of the organization. This will get assigned to somebody who's responsible for creating that article, and away we go. So it's just a way to streamline and find automation opportunities inside of the organization. Now, the last piece I want to talk about here before we get over to the virtual agent side of the house is I just want to give you a sense of what goes into this, because most people hear machine learning, data science, and it's like, oh my gosh, I gotta be a data scientist to accomplish these types of things. What we've done, and from a ServiceNow perspective, is we've tried to streamline the process of creating this and make it so everyone can get into that. So we've talked about a couple of different frameworks here today. Underneath those frameworks, what you have is you have what are called solution definitions. And this is how you configure the data that you want to use for your training from a machine learning perspective. So let's just take a look at the out-of-the-box incident assignment classification model. This is by default what you'll see when you get in there, but you have the ability again to customize this. What we're looking for is, hey, we want to predict the assignment group. That's the output field that we want to predict on a form. What table does the data live in? It lives in my incident table. And then what fields do I use as an input, or do I want to use as part of the training process to predict that assignment group? In this case, we've just chosen the short description. Then I start filtering the data down a little bit. What data do I want to use to train this model? Well, I want to use my closed and resolved tickets to train this up. So I set those up. And then what you do is you set up a training frequency. How often do you want to train this model? From a demo perspective, I only have this set to run once, but in your real life organization, you will have this run on a regular basis. And over time, the model will improve because you're going to be getting more and more accurate results that you're feeding into the model at training time. Once the model trains, what you're going to get is you're going to get a solution that gets spit back into the instance. And you can start looking at, in this case here, it's going to give me this visual of the different assignment groups that it believes it can predict. It gives me the estimated recall and the estimated precision for each of those categories, so I can start getting an understanding of the quality of the predictions that are going to be made. And then you have the ability to start analyzing that data. You get a precision score, a coverage score, a recall score for each one of the assignment groups or categories that you're going to predict. And what you're going to be looking for is your high precision ones, and those are the ones that you're going to keep. And then you've got some ones, and with the precision, you want high precision. These are related or tightly related. So if you want precision, we'll say 98% of the time, I'm going to be able to predict financial system support accurately. And I'm going to be able to do that on 100% of the incidents that come in or tickets come in. In real life, your data is going to be a little bit messier than my demo data here. So you're probably never going to get something in the 98% range. You're probably going to get things in the 80 to 90%, maybe 70%. And then you have the ability to start tweaking the model, adjusting the data that you're training the model based on to improve those numbers, and essentially move as many bubbles as you possibly can to the upper right-hand quadrant of this. Each one of these solutions is very similar to that. You're just filling out forms and then training the data and analyzing the results, and then you deploy the models inside of the system to get those interfaces to interact the way that I was just showing. We make it as easy as possible for you to get going with this stuff. That's the predictive intelligence piece. Okay, and I'll pause there. Were there any questions that came up that you guys weren't, that you want me to address publicly here, or
no,
I transition over to the virtual agent side of the house?
I think you're good. There were a couple questions that came up, and we've answered all of them.
Okay.
But we saw a couple for self-hosted, so I thought I'd just bring it up. Folks are asking if this is available in our SaaS solution as well as self-hosted, and the answer is yes. So obviously our SaaS is DoD approved at a impact level 4, sorry. But if you install ServiceNow on a SIPR environment or on a JVIX environment, you can leverage all the machine learning and AI capabilities as well. Thanks.
Perfect. Thanks, Gabe. All right. So those are the core frameworks. Now, one of the primary users of those frameworks is the ServiceNow virtual agent, the in-platform conversational interface. So I want to just a couple of slides up front to talk a little bit about the value of an in-platform conversational interface, and then we'll look at a live demonstration of it. So when we start thinking about conversational interfaces, I always like to remind people of the 3 core use cases for them, because many people think of the first one, but they tend to ignore the last 2, which are super important. So if we think about using conversational interfaces or chatbots, one of the use cases is information retrieval, where I type a question in and I get an answer of some sort. And that's for a lot of the use cases that are out there. This information gathering one often gets overlooked though, and it's really important. Right? Instead of presenting somebody with this long, complex, confusing form that, you know, I always think about, like when I was running out of time and taking a test in high school, and towards the end I just started putting in C, 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 C. That got me a bad grade. Well, the same thing happens inside of our organizations. When I get confused by a form and I don't know what answers to put in, I just start putting in things like other and answers that don't make any sense. And it generates a tremendous amount of bad data behind the scenes for the organization. And that poor data quality drives inefficiencies across the entire organization. What we're able to do with a conversational interface is step people through the different questions and answers that we need to gather higher quality data, and ultimately that better quality data pushes information or work through the organization in a more streamlined fashion. And then the last use case is this automated fulfillment one, and that's really the panacea when it comes to conversational interfaces, and it's where ServiceNow really shines. If you think about it, the term chatbot is almost a misnomer. Nobody goes to a bot just to chat. If you wanted to chat to somebody, I could recommend a handful of great therapists. They'll charge you a couple $100 an hour and you can chat all day long. The reality is that people go to bots to get something done. And there's no better platform in the world at getting things done or getting work done than the ServiceNow platform. What the virtual agent allows us to do is helps us scale out all the great things that we're putting inside of putting onto the platform to get work done via an additional interface, a new channel, the conversational interface. And in doing so, what it allows us to do is further automate tasks inside of the organization, so to reduce costs and we drive down resolution times. It helps us augment staff. We can take many of those L1 types of things that our frontline workers are handling right now and shift those to an automated L0, freeing those folks up to work on the more complex things, increasing their productivity, but ultimately increasing the productivity of the people that are getting their answers more quickly inside of the organization, right? Because they get stuff done more quickly, they're more productive. And then the last big benefit of the virtual agent is that it's always on 24/7. It doesn't get sick, it doesn't take vacation, right? It's always there, and you can start embedding it inside of very familiar interfaces for folks. That's a very important piece. Essentially, conversational interfaces and collaboration tools are becoming the new home screens for a lot of folks. And if you want to scale out any service that you're offering, you need to be in the flow of their day-to-day lives. Which leads me to the first aspect of successful virtual agent experiences, is the ability to be embedded as part of these additional channels. Right, so we on the ServiceNow platform offer pre-built integrations with Facebook Workplace and Messenger, Microsoft Teams and Slack, and of course the virtual agent can be made available via our mobile application. And what this allows us to do is take all the powerful things that you're doing on the ServiceNow platform and make them available via these different channels. So it just allows you to extend the platform to folks that might not even know that the platform exists. I'll give you an example. One of my customers, they were telling me a story around how they were having trouble getting their developers to update and problem notes inside of the ServiceNow platform, but they made that ability to update problem notes available via virtual agent conversation in Microsoft Teams. So now those developers right inside Teams, they go in and they update problem notes for the things that they're working on. And they said it's significantly increased engagement and the quality of the data that they're getting from their development team. This next piece in the middle here is something that customers often overlook, and it's a huge value add and benefit that we provide. It's the availability of domain-specific data and the important role that that plays in creating the best virtual agent conversations possible or experiences possible. If you think about it, the more data that a chatbot or the virtual agent has access to, the less questions it actually has to ask as part of the conversation. And if you think about all the rich data that you have on the ServiceNow platform around users themselves, where they sit in the organization and who they report up into, any outages that might exist inside of the environments, any work that they already have open on the platform, whether it be an incident, an HR case, a service request, and any assets that they may have access to. If the virtual agent already knows those pieces of information, it doesn't have to ask questions about it, and it creates the optimal experience. If I already know which laptop you have and what type of software exists on it, I can help quickly solve your problem with the virtual agent without having to ask you what type of laptop you have. And then you have other assets on the ServiceNow platform that the virtual agent can seamlessly take advantage of, like your knowledge base, any workflows or orchestrations that you've already built out, any integrations that you've already put in place on the ServiceNow platform, this virtual agent can take advantage of. If you start looking at external conversational interfaces or chat solutions, you're going to have to build all these integrations into the platform only to take advantage of the stuff that's already there, right? You might as well just use what you've already put in place and not redo it in multiple places. And then the last aspect, the last important piece is that no bot is going to be perfect. It's never going to be able to solve every question or problem that somebody has. So the ability to seamlessly transfer over to a live agent and maintain the context of that conversation is key to creating great experiences from a conversational perspective. So those are just three core advantages that you get by using an in-platform conversational experience like the virtual agent.
Hey, Dan?
Yeah, sure.
Before you move on to the next slide, there was a question. I think a couple slides earlier, there was an acronym for NLQ.
Yeah.
Natural language querying, I believe, right?
Yep.
Would you mind expanding on that?
Sure. So what we've rolled out in the Paris version is an additional framework, machine learning framework called natural language query. So what that allows us to do is it allows us to create an interface, much like a Google search bar, where you can type in, I want to see all my P1 incidents broken down by category. And just by typing that in, it will create the query and present you back with the visualization, like a bar chart broken down showing you that. So it's meant to ease the path to getting access to more structured data and information on the platform. So think of, instead of using a report designer to create your reports moving forward, you have this ability to use a Google search box to get the information that you need. That's the natural language query piece. It's, instead of it natural language understanding to help you understand the intent or the action that somebody wants to take and launching you into a conversation. We use natural language understanding to create an underlying query that queries the database and produces a report or a chart.
That was perfect. Thanks, Dan.
Sure. So I mentioned those at the beginning, that all these things are complementary, and this is where you're going to start seeing the virtual agent and the other predictive intelligence frameworks start working together hand in hand. If you think about it, the virtual agent is designed to provide that self-service experience to help people find an answer via the knowledge base or get the status of a ticket or maybe even order an item. But eventually, the virtual agent might be used to create a piece of work. A ticket of some sort, a puck is going to get past the goalie. And that's where the other machine learning frameworks kick in and start streamlining the resolution process. So just based on the short description that was entered, we'll categorize and assign it, automating the triage process for that ticket. We'll start recommending to the agent working the ticket those solutions that we talked about earlier, so they can start, they'll start solving the problems more quickly. And then the last piece would be that demand insights piece that I was talking about earlier. Based on the data that's coming in, we can start creating more impactful knowledge articles or relevant knowledge articles that the virtual agent can surface to folks moving forward. So there's this symbiotic relationship between the two that creates the best experiences possible and really accelerates productivity inside of the organization. And then there's the analytics piece. So we provide out of the box for the virtual agent a pre-built dashboard to help you understand the usage, the adoption, and the quality of the conversations that you're rolling out via the virtual agent. So you can start seeing which departments are using the virtual agent more than others. Where do you need to increase your internal marketing around this option? You can start seeing which conversations are more frequently being transferred over to the live agent, so you know where you can focus on improving the quality of the virtual agent. So there's a nice relationship there. And then you can use all the other analytics capabilities that we just talked about, whether it be the performance analytics and the word frequency analysis it provides, or that clustering capability from a machine learning perspective to help you identify future value add virtual agent conversations that can start deflecting work or streamlining it inside of the organization. And then, of course, when you start talking about AI, machine learning, digital transformation, all these buzzwords, there's a lot of interest in these types of projects. And when you say that you're going to be rolling out a conversational interface like the virtual agent, people are going to want to know whether it's working or whether it's not. And that's when you can start using the analytics engine to start communicating to people that saying, yes, we are seeing a shift from the more costly or less efficient channels to the more cost-effective and efficient channel of the virtual agent. And at the same time that we are seeing the shift, we are seeing an increase in, or a decrease in resolution times and an increase in CSAT scores. You want to be able to communicate to people that things are working. The performance analytics portion of the platform helps you communicate to people the momentum that we have. Now, like with many parts of the platform, as we talked about earlier with the predictive intelligence piece, we provide you some templates to help you get started and some solutions there. On the performance analytics side of the house, we provide you, I think, with 969 pre-built key performance indicators and a couple hundred dashboards to help you get started on your analytics journey in that way. We do the same thing with the virtual agent. We provide you with a set of pre-built content to get you started. Of course, you will then tweak this content to better align to your business, but there's some foundational components there. And for every one of these virtual agent conversations, there's two pieces of the conversation. There's the structure of the conversation, the path that somebody would take to get through the conversation itself. And then there's the natural language understanding intent piece that helps you launch into the conversation itself. We give you foundational building blocks for both pieces of that, the structure as well as the natural language understanding model for each of these areas that are here. And if you just take a moment to look at that list, and ask yourself, are these the types of things that we would use the virtual agent for or chat experience for? And think about your top ticket types that you're seeing inside of your organization today. Very often, when I ask customers that question, the majority of what they would do initially is on this list. And then the things that they come up with that are beyond this list are just minor tweaks to these templates that we have here. Maybe it's opening a certain type of ticket. I was talking to one customer last week that told me that 18 to 20% of the calls that their service desk takes are just checking the status of existing tickets. So simply by providing a virtual agent option there, we'd be able to deflect a large portion of those. Would it get all 20%? Probably not, but even if we only got 5, that's a nice win for something that's out of the box capability. And then the last piece of the virtual agent that's important to know, and you'll see this in action in a second, is that if you want to go beyond those pre-built ones that we offer, you're going to need to author your own. we give you no code, low code authoring environments for both the structure portion of the conversation as well as training the natural language understanding piece that aligns to each of those conversations. And like I said, you'll see this in action in a little bit. So let's jump on over to the virtual agent itself and see it in action. So the first thing I'll do here, I'll come down here and I'll bring up the virtual agent. And this is going to seem like a little thing, but it goes a long way in terms of user experience. I've got this little show me everything button here. What this allows me to do is expose all the different things that the virtual agent can help me with. And like I said, it seems like a little thing, but one of the most frustrating experiences you can have with a chatbot is when you go back and forth 4 or 5 times with it, only to find out that it can't help you. So if the user wants, they can see right up front what it can help them with. Or they can simply start typing into the virtual agent. And this is where natural language understanding will come in. It understood current service outages. Oh, this guy wants to jump into the service disruptions conversation. It'll go out, it'll query the information around outages on the ServiceNow platform and present that information back. This is a good example of one of those information retrieval type use cases that I was talking about earlier. Or maybe I say something like, you know what, I have an IT issue. And what this will do is the natural language understanding engine will recognize, hey, this guy wants to open a ticket. So it'll ask me for my short description. I'll say something like, I struggle with email recovery. And the first thing that this does by default is it takes that short description and searches the knowledge base with it to see if there's any articles that potentially could help me. For purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to say, no, none of these articles resolve my issue. And it'll move me on to the next step of the conversation. And I'll just say here, oh, it's media emergency. And that's all I need to enter into the virtual agent for it to create the ticket on my behalf. Now, what I'll point out here is you'll notice this ticket already got categorized and assigned. I didn't have to enter that information from a user perspective, and that was way too fast for a human being to do that. There's that predictive intelligence piece at work again, where it just took that short description that I entered, used machine learning to predict the category in the assignment group for me, again, accelerating the resolution path for me, creating a better experience. Right from here, I can use the virtual agent to check the status of my incidents. In this case, it knows who I am, so it uses that contextual information, goes out and gets me a list of my incidents. I've clearly done this demonstration once or twice before, maybe 81 times, and it will go out and it's going to get me that incident. And not only do I get the information, I also have the ability right from here to update the or add a comment to this. So let's just say, no big deal, and move along. All right, so I can update information right from the virtual agent as well. You may have already stood up a very robust service catalog with lots of workflows and automations behind it. Maybe I want to take advantage of that and come in here and simply say something like, order a red stapler. And this will go out, query the service catalog for me, find me that catalog item, and then step me through the process of filling out the information for that catalog item right here inside of the virtual agent. I'll say, yes, I need to proceed with this. And yep, submit that request. And now we've kicked off that workflow and the automated fulfillment will take place.
Hey, Dan, I do see a question in the Q&A section.
Sure.
Are we able to update or configure these workflows, these out-of-the-box virtual agent workflows?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you're able to update and configure them, change the ones that I showed you there. And actually, in about 3 minutes, I'm going to show you how easy it is to build one from scratch beyond just the out-of-the-box ones we provide.
Perfect, perfect. And I do have another question.
Sure.
So I'm going to read it. If using NLU Intelligence for change request, will it enforce any fields that have restrictions on content? If there are different workflows for change requests, will it route users to the proper workflow?
Are we talking about the predictive intelligence piece, or we're using the virtual agent?
No, this is the predictive. This is the...
Yeah, if we're going back to the predictive intelligence piece, so 2 steps back there. Once those models are trained and built, the categorization and the classification models that categorize and assign or predict any of those fields, how you deploy those as part of the platform is they get called by business rules that are tied to a process. So you then have the ability to order the business rules. So if you have some specific business rules that you want to enforce that are very specific, what you'll do is you'll have those take precedence over the machine learning ones. And then if those don't get met, you pass it along to the machine learning piece. So it's about kind of the experience you want to create. You're just calling the models via business rules on the platform, so you can control the flow of information.
Perfect, perfect. And just to piggyback off that answer, right? So if there are different workflows and it picks the wrong one, we can always retrain it, correct, Dan?
Oh yeah. So if actually what some customers have done is they've actually, they haven't fully, they haven't put their full trust behind machine learning as of yet. So what they do is they have actually used, they surface the top 3 predictions that have been made and let the end user pick from the top 3 predictions that were made for a certain field. So it's not completely out of the end user's consent. It's more of a recommend. They use it more of as a recommendation engine than something that fills in the value automatically for them. So that part is customizable as well.
Understood. Thanks, Dan.
Sure. The last example that I'll do here is I just want to show you an example. If you remember back to those 4 different ways in which the natural language understanding enhances the virtual agent experience, there was that piece called small talk, where it allows me to start one conversation with the virtual agent and then change my mind, ask a question, and then bounce me back in. So something like, I need to take some time off, and this happens to be more of an HR related scenario. This will launch me into the request for leave conversation. Before I take any of those days off, you know what? I want to check to see if there's any holidays. I don't want to take a day off that we're already getting off. And what this will do is it'll bounce me out, get me an answer to that question around corporate holidays, and then bounce me right back into the original conversation. That's an example of something we call small talk, where you can configure it to bounce back and forth between conversations. And then the last piece, I mentioned that live agent transfer. I don't know if my agent is still awake, but let's click on that. No agents available right now, but that's where the user would kind of go in there and say, hey, I want to contact a live agent. It would bounce me over to that agent and maintain the context of the conversation. So I know now all of you are saying, this is amazing, Dan. This would solve a lot of problems for me, but like, how hard is it to do this? Let's take a look at that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over here to my instance, and I'm just going to go into the designer for the virtual agent, and we'll quickly build a ticket creation conversation so you can see how we interact with data on the platform. So I'm simply going to come in here and add a topic, and we'll call this one AF create a ticket conversation. And this acts as the metadata for each of the conversations that would be rolled out via the virtual agent. And just so you can see, this is where you would link it up to the associate NLU model and the intent aligned to it. You also have the ability to lock these conversations down based on certain conditions or roles. So maybe you have a set of conversations that are for the HR folks or the finance team, but you don't want the IT team to be able to access those conversations. You have the complete flexibility in terms of locking these things down. Now I'm going to save this conversation, and then I'm going to start building it out. So I'll go into edit mode here. And what you've got here is in the middle, you've got the canvas. This is where you're going to set up the structure of your conversation. On the left-hand side of the screen, I have a number of different ways in which the user can enter information into the virtual agent, a number of different ways in which the virtual agent can respond, and then a number of different utilities that help me branch the conversation in different directions or interact with data on the ServiceNow platform. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm just going to come in here and say hello. And since we're going to know who the user is, you'll notice I can quickly navigate over and get access to data that lives on the ServiceNow platform to enrich the conversation. So I'm just going to embed their first name right here. Very simple to interact with data without writing any code. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say, hey, let's get a short description. Short description. We'll say enter a brief description. And then once we get that description, we'll say got it. And then maybe I'll ask him for an urgency. So we'll ask him to choose something. So we'll say urgency. We'll say how urgent. And then we'll give him a couple of choices. House on fire, number 1. And option 2 is no big deal. So we've gathered some information from the user, and then I want to create a record, in this case, an incident on the ServiceNow platform. So I'll say create ticket. What do I want to do? Create or update a record? In this case, create a record. What table do I want to put that in? I want to put it in my incident table. And then what field values do I want to put in? Well, we gathered a short description. So let's use that. And you know what? We gathered an urgency. So let's enter that. And we're going to know who the user is. So we'll just say it was opened by this person here. Save that. So we've gathered some information, we've created some data on the platform, and now let's show that ticket back or show the record back to them. So we'll say show ticket. And I want to show the one that I just created. What fields do I want to show? Well, let's show the short description. And we'll show that it was opened on today. And we'll save it. Once it saves, we'll hit preview. And what this will do is it's going to go out. I'm in as system admin now, so it's going to say hello system. So quickly getting data from the platform, contextual information embedded in the conversation, enter brief description. We'll say blah, blah, blah. Or actually, you know what, better yet, we'll say Queen rules. And we'll enter that. Got it. It'll ask me the urgency. Well, house on fire, of course. Now it's gathered the information behind the scenes. It's creating the record, the incident record on the platform, and then it's going to present that back to me inside of this card piece here. So in a matter of a couple of minutes, right, we're able to go use data, create data, get data back without writing a single line of code. It's this interface, this low to no code interface that gave our customers a lot of agility when they started getting hit with the pandemic and they wanted to quickly author conversations to adapt to those changing conditions. So they would be standing up conversations very quickly in a matter of hours around how we're addressing the COVID situation, what's our work from home policy, all of those different things. So instead of getting an influx of phone calls and tickets coming in around those, they were able to service many of those just common requests and answers via virtual agent conversation. It's just, you get a lot of flexibility here. Obviously the conversations can get a little bit more involved, but it's not rocket science to put these things together and get going and get some of the benefits of this automated response system to scale out the different services that you're providing on the ServiceNow platform. Again, that's what I had prepared for today. Any questions that came in? Anything else that we want to talk about, or anything that you need to do to wrap up?
No, I think we've answered all the questions. I do have a comment. So just if you don't mind shedding light on who would be able to build these conversations, right? We want to make sure that not every end user has access to build conversations, right? You want to kind of put some governance in place, right?
Exactly. Like everything else on the ServiceNow platform, you're going to want to put some sort of governance model in place around who can do this. But one of the goals, or one of the things behind us trying to make this as easy as possible, is to be able to democratize the process a little bit, right? So the folks that are closest to the front lines inside of, let's say, a line of business, a department, or a certain area of the organization, they're going to be the ones that are most attuned to the situations that are coming up most frequently. So you do have the ability to kind of start centralized with this, but then potentially scale it out in a governed way to make sure that we can adapt as quickly as possible.
Perfect. And I do want to touch upon, it's not just process automation, but process improvement, right? So if you see a certain kind of process that keeps coming in through your virtual agent or through your standard, input forms, we could take that and say, okay, this keeps happening over and over again. Let's automate some of this, right? So let's use the data to improve our processes.
That's where that clustering piece that we talked about comes in, right? That's a big component for a lot of folks. Let's see if I just bring this up here, since we've got some time. We'll look at the cluster solution definitions. So in this case, if I just clustered all my incidents here, the clustering machine learning framework underneath the covers, it gives you this visual, right, by default, once you cluster a set of incidents. And if you can make sense of this, I want everyone to think about what they see when I show them this visual, assuming that I'm still logged in here. I see a butterfly. What do you see, Gain? So while we give you this visual and we're improving this visual to help make it more meaningful, you do get back, when you run the clustering solution, the tabular data. I know everyone likes visualizations, but in this case, the tabular data actually makes it much more easy to consume. So we looked at 11,000 incidents, and what this cluster did is it grouped together these different clusters of those tickets. You get a cluster quality score, which is how closely related those tickets are. And in this case, we use short description to analyze the data, but you can combine short description and resolution notes, any fields you want to use as input. It gives us the size of the cluster, so the number of tickets that are inside of that. And then it gives us visibility into this cluster concept. What are the most frequent terms inside of that cluster? So that gives you some high level direction in terms about what are all these things that are going on here? But you always have this ability then to drill into the individual clusters and start looking at the incidents or tickets that make them up. And that's where you start identifying those high volume, high impact automation opportunities that can either become virtual agent conversations, or they can become workflows or service catalog offerings. It's just a really easy way to get started identifying opportunities using this clustering solution.
Sounds good. And we have a couple questions. I'll go over the first one. First one's more platform related, so I'll answer it soon after I ask the question.
Yep.
And then we have another one after that. Okay, so this may be off topic, but will the application recognize SSN, social security numbers, with and without dashes? We copy info from different apps. Some have dashes, some don't. And if we didn't have to go back and delete or add dashes, that'd be great. Okay, so the answer to that question is we can tie in business rules. So when data comes in, we call it field masking. When data comes in, we can put a business rule that says, okay, if there are no dashes associated with the social security number, based on some sort of rules, we say, okay, after the first 3 digits, you add a dash. And then after the next 2, you add another dash, right? So it's basically masking the field with the info you want, or it could be vice versa. If you want to just save it all as a number without dashes, and then just kind of represent the dashes on the form layer, you could do that as well, right? So yes, we can consolidate all this data and make it the same format, if you will. So that's the first question. The second one is, can the virtual agent be used as the org's customer service page versus a web page with buttons of things they can request? Did you want to take that, Dan?
So yeah, many customers actually use the virtual agent on their customer service page in a public sort of fashion. In fact, as part of the, this isn't customer service related, but it is citizen service related. A lot of healthcare organizations that we work with, they started using the virtual agent to act as a COVID-19 symptom checker on their websites. So you could come in there and you can start saying and asking questions about the symptoms, and then it would either say you're good, or recognize that they needed to direct them to a physician for follow-up type of stuff. So certainly available internally, but as externally as well.
And I do want to add to that, right? So a lot of our customers do both, right? So they leverage the virtual agent, but they'll also have a form or catalog item, because sometimes it comes down to preference, right? Not everybody may hit up the virtual agent. So as long as you have another way to capture that info, I think we're in good shape. All right, we are at 12 o'clock Eastern right now. If there are no questions, we can end this thing. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your attendance. If there are any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Thanks again. Bye-bye.